we're going to encounter when wrestling up. Because I could show you many entries on how to wrestle up, but if you're not very competent at finishing whatever wrestling takedown you have, whether it's a double or single, you're going to have trouble getting any form of success. So we're going to go a little more in depth on what resistance we may encounter when single legging someone and how we can go forward. So from here, when I have the single leg on Jed, people will oftentimes look to pummel their foot to the outside to get this sort of knee shield-esque position. So there are two things that I like to do from here. So one, if I feel like as we enter this position, I'm going to look to shuck his knee past and bring it onto my hip. So now when he looks to pull his leg out, it's very difficult, and he looks to sprawl out on the single, also very difficult, because his knee's higher than his hip. When he looks to sprawl out, he really can't. As opposed to, if we're much lower, see, when his knee is lower than his hip, it's going to be much easier for him to sprawl out. So once he pummels in this knee shield, so we're in this original position, he pummels his foot out, I'm going to shuck it up so that I'm hipping my left hip in and bringing his knee to the outside of my ribs. There is a risk that if you don't do anything immediately, he may jump guard, but this is still a score for you since you're already on a single leg. If he does jump guard from here, just make sure he's not like jumping a triangle, so don't like do this. So obviously, when we're drilling here, please don't jump guard because we don't want to risk injury, but just saying, if you were to do this in a more competitive situation where someone may jump guard, just be cautious. But ideally, we're in this position very briefly so that we don't really give him a chance to jump guard. From here, once you get here, ask your opponent, try to give me any form of resistance. And he can either look to limp leg, sprawl his leg out, any form of resistance from here. It should be quite tough. Like, how would you look to defend a single? It's really difficult from here. And from here, what I'm going to look to do is I'm going to look to step my left foot behind his foot and start looking to get almost this hand assist ankle pick. Where from here, I'm going to look to step backwards and hook this foot at the same time feeding it to my hand. I'm looking to get these are a Kuishigari or so from here, again, he pulls out, I'm getting into my rib. From here, I'm going to step behind, and from here, look to those ankles. There are a lot of other alternatives we can start going into. Obviously, from here, there's inside strips. From here, there's inside strips like this, etc. We can also start looking to block the foot, get him down, etc. But for a time being, a very low commitment aims to get him down, where you don't have to change level that much. Hook this far foot, and grab from the inside. Or grab from the outside. So as they look to pummel their foot out of this, if I were to just use the foot, it's very possible, similar to the dummy ankle sweep or the dummy sweep plus ankle pick. From here, they can step out. So we're basically trying to time the step out. Feel free to go into alternative finishes if you like, where you can start going inside trip. Obviously, there are risks of him, again, if you take him down, ending in a closed guard as well. So if you'd rather that not happen, you can start going through these Uchi guards where you remain standing and that can start lifting into your passes. In a situation where I feel like this might be tough, from here, where I can't get this pass, right? What I'm going to look to do is, he's keeping his knee well in front, because a lot of the times the reason why you can bring this up is because he's postured relatively up, right? You can't really impart a lot of weight into this knee, so it's easy for me to bring it up. However, if he's posturing down, right now when I look to suck this up, it's very difficult because knees, I can't get it above my hip, and now it's hard for me to work in here. What I'm going to look to do is I'm going to look to knee slide in the opposite direction and basically hit a rotational double leg. So notice that my left hand that's been elbow deep this whole time, it's going to come into a shallow grip, and then I'm going to start looking to sweep basically into a double leg. The ideal with this is that the moment you rotate through, because he's putting weight in this leg, and that's the reason why you can't bring it to your hip, you're taking this leg out as you roll through. It should take him down to a hip, and you will be able to start getting into your passes. If you're in a situation where there's not really that much weight on this leg, I spin through, he's going to remain standing. That probably means you should have gone into the alternative, like pulling his leg on your hip. So try to only do this when you feel like there's weight on this leg. That's when it's going to be most successful. From here, if you feel like there's no weight, from here you can start coming up and you're bringing the knee to the hip. Does that make sense? So once again, we're in a single leg, you hold this foot out. I feel like it's difficult to hit running the pipe or the knee slides from here. I'm going to look to see whether or not there's weight here and whether or not you postured up. From here, if there's unweighted, I'm bringing it to my rib, and it's a weight turn. It's like trips, Koichigaris. If you feel like they're incredibly well balanced, you can even start going to low doubles, where you start looking to with an angle. So this is only in situations where you're super balanced and you feel like most of your pursuits don't work. But I digress. Anyways, from here, when I feel like he's putting weight in, I'm taking my right foot out, and now I'm going to drop to a knee, ideally outside the line of his toes. So I'm going to look to see how I'm turning my body almost 180 degrees, so that from here, when I look at him, I'm able to take him down to a hip, and now I'm able to go straight into my passing. And from here, same thing applies. If he looks to come to a heist position, we can use these knee turns to make sure he faces us and make it very difficult from the heist. If he manages to turn away and manage to get to the heist position, it's okay. We can start working from here, attacking the turtle. Any questions?
Still possible double.
Not really. I think most of the movement is like me pulling the knee across, because I feel like as I'm turning, it's hard for me to have like a good base to start pushing my head across. Most of the movement is me pulling the knee. Because the knee is weighted, from there it's gonna result in him like he's gonna drop to the ground. So it's less head, more like just pulling the weighted knee across his body. As opposed to like, see if his leg was unweighted, right? This is very light, I can just bring it up. But if I were to choose to go across, it often means that we're gonna end in a situation where he's still on his feet, because a lot of his weight was on his far leg as opposed to his near leg. Right? From situations like these, obviously there's blast doubles we can go into. We can go into low doubles as well. A lot of like good follow-ups from here, but it's not the most appropriate attack in that situation. This attack is most appropriate when I feel like I'm carrying a lot of his weight. So then let's go through and in a position where this, I'm almost acting as his base of support. Because in his efforts to sprawl on me, right, he's giving me his weight. So if I were to suddenly move, now he falls to a hip. Right? Does that make sense? So if he, like in a lot of wrestling situations, your opponent's going to use you to keep stability, especially when you have a leg picked up, right? If he did it, it'd be very easy for me to start going into various, like we were talking about before, bring his foot to my hip, possibly going into like these high singles. He generally doesn't want this because this is harder to escape, just generally. As opposed to here, when he's making me carry the weight, it's going to be a lot tougher for me. But I can use this to my advantage because I'm forced to carry his weight. I can basically move my body in ways where I'm taking his base of support away and sliding over into my takedown. Does that make sense? So it's basically like taking his leg away. It's similar to like the foot sweep we were talking about earlier. It's when he's putting weight on the foot, that's when we're actually breaking him down. If there's no weight, I'm not actually going to end up doing anything. Any more questions? Okay, 1, 2, 3.